I bet you've never seen a hybrid with more face than the head itself. And when I first saw these, I thought, bit of a gimmick. Or was I wrong? And that right there is 1-0 to Swing Mechanics. When I think of gimmick golf clubs, I think of golf clubs that promise the world and then don't deliver on that promise. And when I first got handed this set of irons from Richard from Sub 70, he sells this line as well and essentially gave me this full set. Do as I please. Review them, don't review them, sell them, give them away, whatever I wish. To be honest, I thought these were going to sit in the garage and never see the light of day again. And 3 reasons why I initially hated the idea of these irons is: 1, the price point is pretty mid, not over expensive, not super cheap, £75 a stick or just over £400 for the set. Number 2, the aesthetics definitely aren't something to write home about. Okay, they're black and white and they look relatively classic. Potentially might be a bit miffed at £75 a stick with some of the higher end items you'd see on the market. And thirdly, the whole idea of a hybrid iron set in the past for me personally is just to sucker in that beginner player that's going to promise ultimate forgiveness, high launch, outrageously long golf shot, which I know after 10 years of testing pretty much every piece of equipment under the sun just isn't the case. However, I might have to retract some of those statements as I've played 9 holes with the full set. And there's a few interesting hybrids in here. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, pitching wedge, multiple different lofts that potentially could make their way into your golf bag. So we're going to do some tests out on the golf course. We're going to do some holes one-handed, some holes obviously flat out with my swing to kind of distinguish the difference of who these hybrids are actually designed for. And throughout the remainder of this video, I want you to keep these 3 stats in your mind. 2 of them you can measure: launch and spin, and the 3rd, very personal to each one of us, confidence. As there's a couple of clubs in this bag which personally I think are just cheat sticks. So as we go through each of the categories of these hybrids, we're going to start off with my least favourite, the 5 and 6 hybrid, mainly because these are very attainable. I could list a numerous amount of second-hand 5 and 6 hybrids from multiple different manufacturers that are 4 or 5 years old, that potentially could be adjustable or more forgiving, or you could have multiple shaft options to fit the majority of you guys that are watching this video. Because interestingly, this hybrid set wouldn't be suitable for pretty much 85% of you. However, there's a few hybrids in here that might make you rethink about your bag set makeup and might make you realize exactly why that one particular club in your bag does so much better than all the rest. Ultimately, you saw one-handed with the 5 hybrid. I was struggling to get the thing airborne. But as a slow club head speed player battling low lofts, it really doesn't matter what technology, what head, what shaft you have in there. It's going to be incredibly difficult to get up in the air, and also incredibly difficult to have the confidence as a beginner to really trust it in multiple situations, whether that's off the tee or off the fairway. But here comes one of the biggest bonuses of the 11 brands that I learned to realize over the 9 holes of playing with them. I don't see this as a full iron set. I don't think any golfer needs 6 of these hybrids in the bag, but maybe 1 or 2, potentially 3 as a half set would make sense. And I came to this realization when I started hitting the 7 and 8 iron one-handed. The confidence I had in the length of them, the face showing on the ground, basically gleaming at me, gave me the ultimate positivity that the ball was actually going to go in the air. And it was a combination of launch, spin and confidence that all of a sudden I was finding fairways and I was getting reasonable distance. I even hit one of these 7 irons 150 yards and the 8 iron being very similar to it. And this is why I don't think any golfer would need a full set of these clubs. Potentially you are, or you've got someone that you know thinking about giving up the game of golf because they can't hit it as far as they used to and nothing seems to get up in the air. A 6 at 8, a pitching wedge at £75 each would be enough to be able to play this game with. These have got 0 control. These are launched up there with not that much spin, but it's going to go forward. And I know that because you can see this toe shot here where I essentially nearly missed the club altogether and I still got 120 yards plus out of it. Or potentially you've got a son or a daughter or a wife that's just starting the game and they need a few clubs to essentially get into the game. A 5, a 7 and a pitching wedge, again, would seem to make some sense to me, as the best bit is for those typical players is that if they were to upgrade into a full set of irons or potentially put a 5-wood in the bag and a driver, I don't think you would need to take the 5 hybrid out. I don't think you would need to take the 6 hybrid out, or potentially the cheat stick that I found today, the 7 hybrid. We all hear about 7-woods out on the market, but this is essentially like my 1-length hybrid that I had with Cobra that I found as a cheat stick, but for a slower swing speed player. If you just want to carry at 130, 140 and have a club head speed of about 60 to 70 miles an hour, this thing is a bit of a godsend. But the pitching wedge came into its own. If you've ever thought about having a chipper in the golf bag, this is essentially a chipper but also have some other uses. It's got so much bounce on it that you can play these bump and runs into the green. It gives you that confidence, as essentially it's 50% face, 50% head, and even from 100 yards I was able to stop it on the green. Now this wedge doesn't loft the ball at all in the air. It's not going to be good for that good player that wants those high loft shots that come down and spin on a sixpence. Again, very similar to the chipper design. If you want a utility club that nudges you out of the trees, if you want a club that's going to give you that bump and run confidence from 50, 60, 70 yards, and at first as a low handicap golfer I hated this thing as I just couldn't see the facility of being able to play those high lofty shots or be able to use it out of the bunker as controlled as my normal wedge is. But that's not what this is designed for. If anything, this has actually got more utilities than the pitching wedge that I have in the bag. Chipper, bump and runner, an overall confidence booster. Now before we go any further, I want to do a simple test to kind of prove my point of this video. We tested the 5 hybrid, 7 hybrid and pitching wedge hybrid at 43 degrees loft side by side, and the point of this being is launch, spin and confidence is the key to finding the right golf clubs for you. Tried to swing all of these as consistently as possible, but again one-handed is tried to replicate a kind of beginner golfer anyway, and we're talking about averages. The 5 hybrid with 100 balls and a decent warm-up of course is going to go further, maybe not carry as much, but total length, yes, is going to get that distance. The point being is that I topped the first 5 hybrid and the second one only carried just over 130 yards, whereas the first shot with the slightly shorter length 7 hybrid, a lot more loft, overall just gave me a bit more confidence, was able to carry 140 yards straight off the bat. Second to that, the pitching wedge at 43 degrees loft, again super confident, easy to hit, but again because the launch was too high it wasn't going to go as far as the 7 iron, hence why we have multiple irons in the bag anyway. The point I'm trying to make is that if I was going to go and play this golf course one-handed for 18 holes, the 5 and 6 iron wouldn't even make it into the set. We would be starting at the 7, then going straight to the 9 iron, as the 8 iron pretty much produced the same kind of distance, maybe a bit shorter, but measurable swing by swing, and the inconsistencies of my one-handed swing just would be negligible, and I wouldn't want that kind of decision making out on the golf course. However, when you get into that higher loft section, i.e. the 9 iron and the pitching wedge, I would be able to see that kind of distance. Therefore, my carry distances being 140 with my 7, 120 with the 9, and then 100 with the pitching wedge would make sense, and how I would build my one-handed bag. And it makes sense initially why I didn't like the look of this hybrid iron set. The 5 and 6 for that slow club head speed player, beginner player, or potentially a player towards the end of their golfing career would have gone exactly the same kind of distance. Same as the 7, 8 as well, and the 9 and pitching wedge I just presumed were a gimmick, but now I'm aware that you can buy these individually. And again, the 5 and 6 iron has a lot of competition in the market. There's tons of manufacturers and a ton of mid-range manufacturers that make great high quality adjustable, non-adjustable, graphite, light flex, high lofted hybrids such as these cells. But if you were to go down to sub 70 and these were on the shelf and it was to fit in your wheelhouse of your current set makeup, then again for the fitting £75 isn't necessarily a bad option. The 7, 8, 9 and pitching wedge and the customization, potentially a beginner or again a person that's towards the end of their golfing career, could be customized to their bag. Potentially they just need a 7 iron and a pitching wedge, one that does 140, one that does 100, have a driver in the bag, another wedge and a putter, and you've got a nice little 5 club set that's extremely light that can get you out and playing on the golf course. Or potentially you're a more advanced player but you want a bit of a cheat stick, and the pitching wedge at the bottom of the bag initially that I thought was a bit of a gimmick can be quite versatile. However, I'm 6'1", and I have been playing this game for 10 years, even if I do hit it one-handed. So I'm gonna keep hold of these for a while and probably get the wife out on the golf course to see what a complete beginner or virtual beginner really thinks about these. Like this video, you potentially might like this video up here on the right hand side. Catch you guys there.